first of all, what is a Rumford fireplace? A lot of people don't know what a Rumford fireplace is. Rumford fireplace is a style of fireplace. It's a variation of a colonial American fireplace. The colonial Americans were building this type of fireplace, really similar to what Rumford came up with in his design. Just a couple slight differences. One is the back wall. The back wall of the firebox itself will be perfectly plumb, and the angle at which the walls go. He specified this certain angle that he wanted for his fireboxes that were 135 degrees, which basically means you'll have a 45 degree cut on the corner here to make that 135 degree, so the walls are splayed out. They were building fireboxes like this in the late 1700s, the mid to late 1700s around my area. And this area is where Rumford grew up. I'm not far from, probably an hour away from where he grew up, and then he moved up to Concord, New Hampshire, which is, was called Rumford back then, before the war. So Count Rumford, he was a guy that grew up in Woburn, Mass. His name is Benjamin Thompson. Everybody calls him Count Rumford. People think that he invented fireplaces, but he didn't. He just basically he saw how they were built here, and then when he went back to England, he came up. He did a lot of work on fireplaces, but the ideas he had, probably he saw in fireplaces here, and then he kind of like built on them, and then just wrote it down on paper so people would remember it. But very similar to early American colonial style fireplaces. So anyhow, we're building a Rumford fireplace, and I just want to show you how I lay it out. So first I start by drawing it out on paper. If you're building a fireplace and you're unsure of how everything's going to work out, I would just recommend trying to lay it out on paper. It doesn't really take that long when you get used to it, just to kind of plan this stuff out. So this is looking straight down at a Rumford fireplace, and this one I was trying to get 15 inches. Oh, this was another variation of that 58-inch fireplace. That's okay. And this one we got an 8x8 in the corner, but we're going 15 inches deep on this one, which is pretty deep for a Rumford. But you see, just drawing it out, I realized that this dimension's not going to work. So this brickwork around that fireplace only works out with broken bond going up the middle. It's helpful to notice this stuff ahead of time. And broken bond, see, it happens on this side and it happens on this side. This one is just a different Rumford fireplace, has a granite lintel over the top. The one we're working on now is really similar to this. This one's a 4-foot wide one, but so we're doing 3-foot wide, and our granite lintel will be continuous all the way. So sometimes when you draw it out like this, it's helpful to know where to start on something like this, because then you have to bond it over the top. Like, we won't have to worry about it on the project we're working on, but when you get to the top here, this brickwork better bond out over the top. You might be working on stack bond by the time you get over the top. It might not work, so you better make sure your bond's right before you start, because I've seen it. What you don't want to happen is, you come across here and all of a sudden you get to the middle, and instead of an 8-inch opening to close, you only have a 4-inch opening, okay? And that's why it's important to bond all that out before. And it's easy to do it on a drawing like this. But now, look, I've got a sheet of plywood, and you can just transfer everything right to a sheet of plywood, all the dimensions I have. So this chimney is an existing chimney, and the guy wants, we're gonna gut the fireplace, the smoke chamber, everything out, like floor to ceiling, the whole front to it. We're gonna take the whole thing out, and we're gonna rebuild it as like a Rumford style, colonial American style fireplace. So we have these nice looking clay bricks. We're gonna lay it with lime putty mortar, which is the old way. So 31.5 is the total width of the chimney, and 61.5 is the total length that I have to work with. My firebox is 36 inches wide. So I start everything off of the center line, and then I just go from there. Okay, so you want it to bond out basically half on half best you can. So these cuts I made, so it bonds out half on half here. And so now I should be able to keep going with this brick. And be half on half the whole way. And my joints when I do this are going to be really tight, so I'm going to make them really tight here. Okay, so that's the left side. Okay, so now you see it's starting to take shape as a firebox, and I can continue and bond all this stuff out all the way around ahead of time. This is what the chimney looks like already. So when we get there, the shell is going to be there, and we're only opening up the face. So I'm probably going to only open it to this corner here and that corner, and we're going to open this whole area up and redo everything like that. So let me put the rest of this firebox together here. I don't have all the cuts made. I'm still working on cutting everything and getting it ready. This is going to be like that. Okay. There's some more stuff here. These ones will go. These ones go like this. This will go. Some of these bricks are pretty ugly, and I'm not going to end up using them, but just for now, I'm using them just to do layout here. I'll put this one here. Okay, so that's the basic layout of the firebox. So we're 36 inches wide in the front, and we want to be 1/3 of the front dimension. So we want to be 12 inches width in the back, and that was a dimension that Rumford specified, 1/3 in the back if you can. Obviously, if you have a really wide firebox, then you don't have to do that. Another thing is we have to be 1/3 the width deep as well. So we have to be at least 12 inches deep. And we're like, I think it ends up being about 12 1/4 deep. I got this damper here that, actually it's a gasketed damper, and I bought this online I bought it from Buckley Rumford. I think it's rumford.com. But that's where they sell the Rumford kits. And I'm not much for buying kits, so I'm just going to do everything. Obviously, I got to buy the damper, but I'm going to do everything by hand because I don't like the idea of doing kits. It's just not. It's not for me. I like more authentic stuff. So you're going to notice that this damper opens different than a conventional damper, like a Vestal damper or a Hutch damper that open on the back. This one opens on this side, and it pops open like this, and it's completely out of the way. One of the reasons for that is the airflow off the back wall needs to go straight up on a Rumford. So we're looking for laminar airflow. So everything's going to flow really nice, and also this is going to sit on a granite lintel. So the granite lintel will be flush here, and it will round to the face. So everything's going to be really smooth and smooth flowing. If it was a different style damper, it would be pivoting like this, opening this way, which pushes the air current this way to the front when it's partially open, or when it's all the way open, it's like that. So Rumford styles want to prevent pushing that airflow forward into this into the air current that's coming from the face. So that's why I chose this style damper. And it seems pretty decent. It's got, you know, it's got a gasketed seal, which is nice. It comes with these nice Chinese parts. This holds the damper and the brickwork, and it's got this long handle. Like the long handle is actually nice. I don't know why they have these parts made in China, but I'm guessing they save money by doing it. So this goes between the brick joints up at the top of the firebox and on the back wall, and this is how you operate the damper. You can get it to catch here or open it all the way. Obviously I'll show you more of that when the firebox gets installed. It's like I'm not good enough to bond everything out in my head, or just even writing down dimensions. I get lost sometimes, or just make small mistakes. So if we bond this out, so I actually, this is how the brickwork bonds out on the job. It starts like this and it goes that way. And so now I've noticed I've already made a mistake. This firebox here, I was actually supposed to start it like this, okay? And then that bonds out better with everything on the job that's already existing. So this is why bonding out really helps to catch these problems before they happen. If I built the firebox and all of a sudden didn't bond out, I'd be in trouble. So this would have to switch, and then this side would have to switch. This would go that way, and everything would start and go like that and all the way around. And I'm gonna start with balanced brickwork regardless, because over the top I have a granite lintel, and the brickwork over the top doesn't matter if I'm off bond or whatever. If it doesn't bond out, I'm gonna have a piece of granite over the top, and then everything's gonna be surrounded by wood trim after. So this is my cut station, and I've already started cutting. I already cut a bunch of these, and I have to just nip these edges off. I had this on here for a quick little stop when I was cutting some of for the firebox, I needed the 7 1/4 inch pieces, so I just put this little stop on here with a quick clamp. It helps to cut things fast because there's a lot of cuts. So there's one good face and there was one bad face, and this face isn't flat or true. So when you cut, you always want to make sure the good face is up against the guard so it sits nice and flat. In this one, I still have to cut. I still have to cut this one, and I'll just show you a quick cut, I guess. So I'll put it to this line here that I've already got predetermined, and I'm gonna cut. Okay. You can quickly just whip them right out. Put the flat side against there. That's already the saw cut face. I go right from the corner right to my Sharpie mark there. Okay. And then I just cut. You see that one is just a little bit off because the size of the brick is a little bit different. So I'll just squeak it in just a bit. Okay, now it's perfect. Now I can bring it over here. Okay, and it should work out pretty good with that angle. So this is the NFPA 211. My state has adopted this, and so this is what we need to conform to. Some states have adopted the ICC, which is the International Code Council. I feel like they lay things out a little bit better than the NFPA does. When you look inside this book, it's really just, I mean, it's just a whole bunch of BS. It's written by lawyers. It's hard to look at. It's hard to read. there's just too much to it, especially for like, you know, we're just a bunch of uneducated bricklayers trying to build fireplaces, and this stuff is not written for just regular people to be able to read and learn. Let's start here. 11211. Fireplaces shall be constructed of solid masonry units or reinforced Portland or refractory cement concrete. Okay, so basically you can use just about anything to build a fireplace. You do not have to use fire brick. And today we're not using fire brick. This is a common misconception. I hear it a lot. You can build a fireplace with whatever you want, basically, as long as you have the proper thicknesses. Rumford fireplaces shall be permitted provided that the depth of the fireplace is at least 12 inches and at least 1/3 the width of the fireplace opening. And the throat is at least 12 inches above the lintel and at least 1/20th the cross-sectional area of the fireplace opening. Okay, so Rumfords are permitted, because if you see up here, it says the firebox of a concrete masonry fireplace shall have a minimum depth of 20 inches. Okay, so this is a standard firebox. They have to be 20 inches, and the throat shall not be less than 8 inches above the fireplace opening. Okay, so we're going to be building a Rumford, so we're going to be really narrow. It's going to be 12 inches deep. Okay, so this is covering the fire brick. We're a lining of low-duty fire brick, blah, 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 or the equivalent, or other approved lining is provided. The total thickness of back and sides, included the lining, shall not be less than 8 inches. Okay, so if we're using fire brick, the minimum thickness of our firebox needs to be 8 inches, okay? So 11216, where the lining described, basically the fire brick, the one we had just read about, the fire brick, where the lining described in 1121.4 is not provided, the thickness, back, and sides of the fireplace shall be not less than 12 inches thick. Okay, 12 inches is completely ridiculous. That is a ton. Oh, so how I read that is the firebox wall has to be 12 inches thick of solid masonry, okay? I have a couple questions about this that they won't define in this book or in anywhere else. You just can't find the answers to some of this stuff. So you're left guessing. The ICC, they recommend 10 inches thick when you're using clay brick or something like that. So on this fireplace, I am going to be using clay brick. Okay? And I'm laying it out right now. So if this is the edge of the firebox here, this is going to be a Rumford style fireplace. So if this is the edge, what they want is basically 12 inches. So you got your 4-inch brick wall in front and then an 8-inch brick there, and you have 12 inches thick, continuous all the way around this. The problem with doing it like this is, okay, I need a flue back here, okay? And in most cases, I'm gonna need a flue. And that doesn't leave much room to get my flue through and still account for expansion, like without mortaring the flue all in or having no room for it to move. And the other thing that I wonder is, okay, so if I build this 8 inches thick here, I have 8 inches of solid masonry here, and then I have another 4 over here, okay? And then there's space here, maybe a flue comes up there, right? Why can't I have this 8 inches and still count this 4 inches as total thickness? Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't, like, it's never made complete sense to me. So this is one of my questions that I have, and I've had it for a long time, and nobody seems to be able to answer that, and I can't find it in writing anywhere. Because ideally, you know, this firebox doesn't need to be more than 8 inches thick. There's just no way. Every fireplace built in the 1700s that ran for 150 years, or at least 100 years, they never had 12-inch thick fireboxes. Their firebox would be just like this. 2 courses of brick thick, just like that. And the interior course, when you pull them apart, the interior course still looks beautiful. And so this would give me the room that I need, more room for my flue back there to come back in that back corner. What I'm going to do on this fireplace is a little different. I'm going to be a little sneaky about it. I've wanted to do it for a long time, but when you read the wording of the code, they want you to have solid masonry. So if you have fire brick here instead of clay brick, you need 8 inches total of solid masonry. Even though I've got this 4 inches here, they just want 8 inches here. Okay. So, but what I want to do is, I'm thinking about putting insulation here. I build my 4-inch thick firebox, and behind it, I put my foil back insulation. And that will give this brick room for expansion. And the mortar's going to be soft because we're going to use lime putty mortar like the old way. The mortar will be soft, so this brick will have room to move as it heats up, and it won't be directly against this colder brick behind it. And it'll have insulation back there for even better protection. That stuff's rated for like 3,000 degrees. So I think it's a cool idea. Like if you look into masonry heaters behind this first wall where the fire would be, they would put cardboard, like 1/4-inch thick cardboard behind there as the buffer. So this brick would have room to move, and basically the cardboard that's in there, it will just turn black and disintegrate over time, and it will leave an airspace, enough room for this brick to move. That's what I'm thinking about trying on this one. Every firebox I build, every fireplace I build, I try to get a little better with it. I try to think how it could be better. And some of these ideas I've had for years, and I haven't felt comfortable doing them, like, putting the insulation in here. But it's really, the way the code's written, it doesn't leave me room to be creative like that. It just says you need 12 inches of solid masonry. Okay, well, that means that I'm supposed to fill this solid with masonry. Okay. I want to put some insulation there and see how that does. And then, if this ever fails down the road, it's not, mortared into this. There'll be a little buffer. It'll be easier to replace all that. That's just something I've been thinking about. So, if I have that insulation in here, with that kind of fire rating, you'd think, well, geez, you got the 4 inches here of solid masonry. You got that insulation, which is a 3,000 degree buffer. And then you have one other course of masonry here. That should be substantial enough to be able to, not go 12 inches wide here. And so I have room to put a flue back there coming up from the basement, So the codes, a lot of times they prevent people from being creative and being able to do things that may actually be better. And, I think a lot of times those codes are written by weasels. Guys that, for instance, like people that stand a chance to make money off of different codes. First of all, every time there's a new book that comes out, everybody's got to buy it. Okay, so this NFPA, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Codes, they write up new codes for everything, and then when they put out a new book, you got to buy it, right? They make billions of dollars just selling these books, right? When they probably ought to be provided by the government. Or if the government wants you building to a certain standard, they ought to provide this stuff for free. You shouldn't have to pay $100 and something for a book like this that's so poorly written. It should be free for anybody, in maybe your town should provide it, or your state should provide it. If they want stuff being built right, they should provide the code for you. That's just my opinion. I'm not against codes. I think codes are great, but I think that they go a little too far. Say for instance with, when everything switched to using refractory mortar for the fireboxes and smoke chambers, when you're using fire brick, it says in the code book, when you're using brick, you need to use refractory mortar, medium duty refractory mortar, right? That the people that push that code we're part of that industry selling refractory mortar. And now that refractory mortar that used to be just a couple years ago was like 40 or 50 bucks a bag. Now people are getting 90 bucks a bag for that mortar. Okay. So it's a bit of a racket. The people that are pushing these codes, for refractory stuff, maybe the refractory is a little bit better. We haven't had enough time to really see, but I don't know. I've seen the refractory mortar crack up and have problems too, just like other mortar, just like Portland-based mortar. So far, the best I've seen is actually the lime putty mortar. I mean, that stuff lasted for hundreds of years, or at least 100, and nothing today seems to last any length of time at all. So, anyhow, that's my rant. I'm gonna find a brick that's got a decent face on it. I don't want the bricks that don't have good faces. I'll put this against like that. Oops. Okay, make sure it's flat against the guard and flat down. Okay, that's it. And see, I kept a lot more of that brick to make it longer so it bonds out. And then the next cut on this, right? So I just did that one. Next cut's gonna be, so I'm gonna cut a bunch just like that. And then I'm gonna go back to 0 with it. Okay? And then my next cut is gonna be right in line. Let's do it this way. And so my mark is there. So I know I'm gonna be pretty close on it. Make sure you're not rocking on anything. Okay? Okay, that's my corner piece, and that's how it's done. That's what it's looking like after I got a few courses up. I'm almost done the cutting. It seems like everything's going pretty good. I've just got everything kind of dry stacked here. It's not perfect. Some of this stuff won't be going in, like there's scrap brick in here, like some chunks and some weird stuff. But yeah, that's what it's looking like. So what I was looking for is balanced brickwork. Okay, so I have this piece here starting going this way, and it also matches this. So those could have been opposite, right? But I chose to have them like that. I have a granite lintel going over the top of this, so nothing on top of this has to bond through. And so after I bonded all the brick around, you can see here on this corner we have normally this would be a mistake because obviously we're off bond. Okay, we came all the way around this way and we end up with a half in the wall. That's how we know we're out of bond. It's okay on this one, so I'll have to do something funky on this corner just to get it to bond through. But keep in mind that this is all going to be wrapped in wood. Okay, this side will be wood paneling and the front will be wood paneling. Okay, so we can hide a lot right here. They want that trim to be maybe like 6 or 8 inches in from the edge of the fireplace, like they would have been in the old days. So we can hide that half brick. We'll be able to hide it and nobody will know that it's off bond. If everything was showing, we couldn't do that. Okay, and so the solution would be to bond that through all the way. This is why dry bonding, always dry bond. It doesn't matter if you're doing a big commercial building or if you're doing a small fireplace like this, you have to bond everything out. You'll find all the mistakes and you'll figure them out way ahead of time. Okay, so a simple solution is this brick faces the other way. We turn this brick and the long part of the brick would be here and the short part would be here. And then it would bond through. But of course we wouldn't have the balanced brickwork, how all the cuts are on the same level facing the same way. You'll remember on one of the drawings I showed you, I figured out the same problem I had with the 3-foot firebox on that setup, and I made a note on the paper to reverse bond right there. So it can't be balanced, so we just reverse the bond, and then everything works out all the way around it. Anyhow, I've got almost everything cut. It's kind of a mess around here, but got everything almost cut. I'm just going to work on these brick here, on rounding these corners off, just so, you know, those straight lines bother me, because you would have never seen those straight lines on the corner of an old firebox. They'd be nice and rounded and smooth. So we'll work on sanding those round, and then we'll see how they look.